On the afternoon of April 15, 2011, Meng Xianchao was in Beijing, China, when he received a text message from Liu Qian, his ex-girlfriend who was studying in Canada. She asked if he was free and could connect via video to study together. Although they had amicably broken up a month earlier, their relationship remained very good. Knowing that Liu Qian liked having someone with her while studying and thinking he had nothing important to do, Xianchao happily agreed. Just minutes after connecting by video, Xianchao heard a knock on Liu Qian's door. This surprised him since it was already past 1 a.m. in Canada. Who would visit so late? Thanks to the camera position facing the door, Xianchao could observe everything. When Liu Qian opened the door, a tall white man appeared, standing a head taller than her. He had a muscular build, was just over 20 years old, wearing a blue crewneck t-shirt and shorts. After a brief exchange, Liu Qian handed her phone to the man. He stood at the threshold, keeping the door open, and began using the phone. Meanwhile, Liu Qian returned to her computer desk, continuing her video chat with Xianchao, occasionally turning to speak to the man. Perhaps sensing something was wrong, at 1:19 a.m., Xianchao sent Liu Qian a message through QQ. He wrote that the man was talking too much, and she should ask him to leave, using the excuse that she needed to focus on her homework. Xianchao even used the Shake Chat window feature to get her attention, but Liu Qian seemed not to notice these messages. Through the screen, Xianchao saw her approach the door again, but this time the situation seemed different. The man began making inappropriate gestures, trying to embrace Liu Qian despite her clear refusal. When Liu Qian tried to push him out of the room, the man forcefully entered and quickly slammed the door behind him. In the violent struggle that followed, Liu Qian continuously tried to back away from her attacker, but was eventually pinned to the floor. The fall position moved her out of camera view, with only one of her feet visible in the frame, continuously moving in desperate resistance. Through the computer speakers, Xianchao could clearly hear Liu Qian pleading, "No! No! No!" repeating it in both English and Chinese. Suddenly, two deep sounds echoed, and afterward, Liu Qian was completely motionless. A terrifying silence fell, then was broken by the man's heavy breathing and the sound of furniture being moved. Soon after, he appeared in the camera's view, standing up, locking the door, turning off the lights, and moving toward the computer. In the dim light from the screen, Xianchao realized with horror that the man was wearing nothing from the waist down. Fully aware that Liu Qian had been sexually assaulted, he broke into tears and shouted at the screen, trying to warn her or do something to help. But it was all in vain. Since Liu Qian wore headphones while talking to him, the attacker couldn't hear Xianchao's desperate cries. In desperation, Xianchao used his only available method, typing a stream of angry curses into the chat window, hoping the flashing text would catch the attacker's attention. Simultaneously, with rare presence of mind in an emergency, he quickly activated the recording function of the chat software to preserve evidence. But all efforts proved futile when, seconds later, the man abruptly shut down the computer, completely severing the connection between them. The horrific scene was like a nightmare playing out in reality, but Xianchao couldn't wake up to escape it. In a state of extreme panic and mental breakdown, he suddenly realized the need to contact the police immediately. But a challenge emerged. He was in Beijing, half a world away from Toronto. How could he contact the local police there? In his panic, a flash of insight came to him: Liu Qian's QQ account. Due to their previously close relationship, he knew her password habits well, and after a few attempts, Xianchao successfully logged into his ex-girlfriend's account. At 2:46 a.m. with trembling hands, Xianchao sent the first distress signal to the chat group of Liu Qian's local classmates. He wrote that she was in grave danger and urgently requested that anyone online help contact the police. Fortunately, a friend named Qiao Yang read the message and responded immediately. Without hesitation, he promptly contacted the authorities for help. However, in the rush and panic, an unfortunate mistake occurred. Qiao Yang accidentally provided the emergency call center with Liu Qian's old address where she had previously lived, rather than her current residence. This error led to serious consequences. The police team was dispatched to a completely different location, preventing them from reaching the actual scene during the critical first hours after the incident. Parallel to the police notification effort, Xianchao also immediately contacted Liu Qian's parents to inform them of the emergency. Upon receiving the news, they tried to reach the Chinese consulate in Canada for help, but since it was early morning, no one was on duty at the diplomatic office, making this effort futile. Meanwhile, time continued to pass along with the faint hope for Liu Qian's safety. It wasn't until around 8 a.m. that a glimmer of hope appeared when another friend of Xianchao read the distress message upon arriving at school. Without delay, he immediately contacted his cousin who lived near Liu Qian's area. The cousin quickly went to check on the situation, contacted the landlord to open the door, and they witnessed an unimaginable horror. Liu Qian lay face down, motionless on the floor, her body already cold and stiff. Her gray dress was pulled up to her waist, exposing her completely naked lower body. Her hair was disheveled around her head, her face down with the lower part soaked in blood. A pool of blood spread around her head and neck, a sign of a violent death. Near her left ankle, a used sanitary pad lay still like a heartbreaking detail of the case. In the corner of the room, her underwear and black tights were carelessly discarded, traces of a desperate struggle. On several areas of her body, especially the abdomen and groin, the attacker's bodily fluids remained. Notably, the laptop, the last connection between her and Xianchao, along with her Nokia phone, had disappeared without a trace. After the autopsy, forensics determined that Liu Qian died from asphyxiation due to neck compression. Clearly, the man who appeared in her room after 1 a.m. was the prime suspect. Who was he, and what was his relationship with Liu Qian? Liu Qian had only been in Toronto for half a year, too brief to fulfill her promising dreams. Born in September 1987 to a prestigious intellectual family in Beijing, she was raised in an encouraging academic environment. Her father held the position of director of the teaching research department at the Party School, also a professor and PhD advisor. Her mother was also a scholarly educator, teaching history at a prestigious university. From a young age, Liu Qian demonstrated extraordinary talent in language and arts. Her rich imagination and quick adaptability allowed her to compose captivating short stories in an instant. Whenever she stood before a crowd, rather than being shy like many peers, she shone with rare confidence, causing friends to affectionately call her the storytelling king. In elementary school, her artistic talent was recognized when she won first prize in a prestigious drawing competition. Not only academically excellent, Liu Qian also possessed a kind heart and noble soul. With a sociable and open personality, she easily made friends with everyone. Her kindness manifested through specific actions, regularly volunteering to donate blood, not hesitating to bring injured stray cats home for careful nurturing. In short, Liu Qian embodied a girl who was both talented and kind, possessing all the precious qualities that everyone cherishes and admires. June 2010 marked an important turning point in Liu Qian's life when she received her bachelor's degree in communications from Beijing City College. Not stopping there, she nurtured aspirations to continue her education abroad. With determination to enter a prestigious university, Liu Qian worked hard to take the IELTS English test twice. She outlined a clear future path. First mastering the language, then applying her expertise to become a bridge in cultural exchange between China and Canada. By September 2010, Liu Qian's study abroad dream became reality when she officially set foot at York University in Toronto. This was one of Canada's top 3 universities, and the English language and literature major she chose was also highly ranked internationally. Like other international students, Liu Qian packed her belongings, hugged her parents goodbye, and faced challenges alone in a foreign land. In her heart, the flame of hope and bright dreams still burned passionately, motivating her to overcome all difficulties ahead. The decision to send their daughter to study abroad placed no small financial burden and anxiety on Liu Qian's parents. To cut costs, they accepted that their daughter would stay in a rather modest place. Near York University was a residential area called York University Village. This name sounded official, like a school dormitory area, causing many parents to mistakenly believe their children would be guaranteed safety living there. The reality was completely different. This was just a neighborhood with hundreds of independent and semi-detached houses, over 90% owned by landlords who rented them out. To maximize profits, many homeowners divided their properties into countless small rooms and rented them to students at cheap rates. The house where Liu Qian resided was no exception. A 4-story building, from the basement to the 3rd floor, divided into 12 separate rental rooms. Liu Qian lived in a small room in the far end of the basement, with a simple bathroom inside. Only separated from the neighbor's room by a thin wall, her living space was at the end of a long, narrow hallway, a remote and secluded position. After the tragedy, pain and self-blame tormented Liu Qian's parents without cease. They constantly asked themselves, if we could have given her a better place to live, would things have turned out differently? They agonized, thinking that if the building had been equipped with a public telephone system during those fateful moments, perhaps they could have contacted other residents in the house, and maybe the tragedy could have been prevented in time. On that fateful day, just hours before the tragedy, Liu Qian had a warm video conversation with her mother. Her voice was full of excitement as she shared that final exams were ending soon, and she had already booked her flight home. With undisguised joy, she enthusiastically talked about her favorite foods she looked forward to enjoying when home, along with plans to meet and go out with close friends. No one could have imagined that, just a few short hours later, all those beautiful plans would forever vanish into thin air with her last breath. Based on information Xianchao provided, Liu Qian appeared to know the suspect. The fact that a man appeared at her room so late suggested he probably lived nearby. With this clue, police quickly narrowed the scope of investigation, focusing on residents living in the same detached house. This building had a total of 13 tenants, mostly York University students of various nationalities. Among them, only 2 were female, one being Liu Qian. Notably, room 103 on the 1st floor, near the main entrance, was occupied by a 29-year-old Canadian named Dickson. Additionally, this floor had 3 other living rooms, along with a kitchen and living room shared by all residents. The 2nd floor of the building had a room belonging to Zhou Jimin, a Chinese international student who became the first to discover Liu Qian's tragic death, and his cousin also stayed here. The adjacent room was occupied by an Indian international student, who assisted in reporting to the police when the incident occurred. This floor had 1 more room. Up to the 3rd floor, the highest level of the building, were 2 separate rental rooms. When examining all the building residents, investigators quickly noticed Dickson, the person whose identifying characteristics matched most closely with the description of the attacker Xianchao had seen through the video screen. Dickson was 6 feet tall, with a notably muscular build, perfectly matching the image Xianchao had described. On April 18th, after carefully monitoring Dickson, police collected 2 cigarette butts he discarded to conduct DNA testing. The next day, investigators interrogated Dickson for over 3 hours, looking for contradictions and suspicious signs in his testimony. Dickson moved into the building where Liu Qian resided in November 2010. About 2 to 3 weeks later, during a trip to the basement laundry room to wash clothes, he had his first encounter with Liu Qian. Their brief conversation left Dickson with the impression of an extroverted, friendly girl with a sweet smile, precisely the characteristics that made Liu Qian easily befriend people around her, but may have also inadvertently made her a target for someone with bad intentions. During interrogation, Dickson admitted visiting Liu Qian's room on the night before she was killed, but claimed he only stayed for a few minutes before leaving. With a calm face, he stated that from when Liu Qian moved in until the fateful day, he had visited her room exactly twice, each time for no more than 3 to 4 minutes. In particular, Dickson emphasized that there had never been any intimate actions between them, such as hugging or kissing. According to Dickson's testimony, on the evening before the incident, around 10 p.m., he planned to go out for dinner. On his way, he happened to meet Liu Qian again in the laundry area. They exchanged briefly for about 3 minutes. Then he left for a nearby restaurant where he ate dinner and had a little alcohol, a detail later refuted by restaurant staff. According to Dickson, around 12:30 a.m., he returned home, stopped by the laundry room to get his clothes, and coincidentally met another tenant. Afterward, he returned to his room, took sleeping pills, and went to sleep immediately. Dickson cleverly added that he didn't sleep well that night due to noise from the stairs continuously echoing, and it wasn't until 5 a.m. that he left his room to use the bathroom. Before ending the lengthy interrogation, the chief investigator asked a direct question, looking straight into Dickson's eyes. "Did you get up in the middle of the night to go down to the basement? Did you kill Liu Qian?" Dickson's reaction was strong. He immediately raised his voice, almost shouting, "No such thing!" No exclamation mark. This excessive reaction, rather than helping him demonstrate innocence, inadvertently became a suspicious sign in the eyes of experienced investigators. However, the waitstaff at the restaurant all confirmed that Dickson stayed at the restaurant until around 1 a.m. that night, which differed from the time he claimed. The tenant who met him in the basement also said that around 2 a.m. on April 15th, he saw Dickson enter the basement laundry room, a time that also didn't match his testimony. They greeted each other, and at that time, Dickson wasn't carrying any clothes, wearing a blue t-shirt and shorts. Dickson attended high school in Toronto, then studied political science at York University. He was passionate about politics, serving as president of the York University Political Science Parliament, a very active student leader. Additionally, he worked as a model thanks to his attractive appearance and tall stature, attracting some fans during his university years. On his social media account, he introduced himself as a part-time actor and running coach. Dickson grew up in Toronto and had an older brother. His mother was a mental health professional. His father, before retirement, worked at the Children's Aid Society and was also a children's literature author who had published several related books. Thus, he too was born into an intellectual family, and his future also seemed very bright. Was Liu Qian's death really unrelated to Dickson as he claimed? The answer gradually revealed itself as the investigation delved deeper into his past and true character. As police expanded the scope of investigation, a completely different Dickson emerged from his outward appearance. Behind the image of an outstanding student was a person with an abnormal lifestyle and many suspicious points. They discovered that he had been studying at York University for an astonishing amount of time, 10 long years. The last time Dickson appeared in class was during the summer of 2010, after which he completely disappeared from campus. According to confirmation from York University, despite studying for such a long time, Dickson had never received any university degree. Dickson's work life wasn't much better. A short time working at a flyer distribution company left a terrible impression about his discipline. His former employer stated that Dickson arrived late for work nearly 90% of the time, a figure reflecting a clear lack of responsibility. Particularly noteworthy were the contents Dickson posted on some websites, causing even seasoned investigators to be startled. He not only wrote a series of posts about prohibited substances and pornographic content with alarmingly bold levels, but when searching his room, police also found a collection of 103 suspicious CDs. Notably, among them were 51 discs related to Asian women and 27 related to teenagers, an alarming pattern of interest. On his dating account, Dickson even posted information recruiting Asian women for an unidentified film company. The deeper investigators dug into Dickson's past, the more alarming allegations they discovered. In 2006, a serious incident occurred when Dickson met a girl at a nightclub, then took her home. There, despite the victim's resolute objection and strong resistance, he forced himself upon her. Although the girl later bravely reported to police for unclear reasons, the prosecutor asked her to withdraw the complaint. Thanks to this undeserved luck, Dickson escaped the justice system without suffering any consequences. By 2008, another detail emerged when Dickson's ex-girlfriend reported his condemnable behavior to police. According to her testimony, Dickson had seized all her money to buy prohibited substances. Not accepting the total loss of funds, when the girl tried to get it back, Dickson aggressively restrained her. When she reacted by cursing, he not only didn't stop but increased the intensity of violence until the victim begged for her life. However, for personal reasons, the girl ultimately didn't take the case to court. Dickson's string of criminal behavior continued when not long after, he was caught trying to steal from a store. Although he was discovered by staff and reported to police, once again, thanks to inexplicable luck, the police eventually dropped the theft charge. Thanks to this strange chain of resolved incidents, Dickson still maintained a clean judicial record, without any previous convictions. On the second day after the interrogation, an important breakthrough in the case emerged. DNA test results from the cigarette butts police collected confirmed an undeniable truth. Bodily fluids found on Liu Qian's body had a perfect match with Dickson's DNA. This was the first physical evidence clearly proving a direct connection between Dickson and the victim, while completely refuting his previous statement that he had never had intimate actions with Liu Qian. Continuing to search Dickson's residence, investigators also discovered a t-shirt with small bloodstains. Forensic test results indicated that this blood likely belonged to Liu Qian, a second piece of physical evidence incriminating Dickson. With these two important pieces of evidence in hand, that afternoon, police officially arrested Dickson and brought forth the most serious charge: first-degree murder. During the arrest, police discovered another notable detail. Both on his person and in his residence, Dickson had a total of 5 different medications. Notably, at least 2 of these were identified as psychiatric medication and antidepressants, suggesting the subject's unstable mental health condition. When asked about this, Dickson admitted having psychological problems, specifically anxiety and depression. He stated he had previously consulted a doctor for these disorders, but had since stopped taking medication. That day, after a brief trial, Dickson was detained, and the judge read the indictment for first-degree murder. He offered no defense. On April 20th, with broken hearts, Liu Qian's parents arrived in Toronto in indescribable grief. Recalling the moment the horrific case occurred, Liu Qian's mother said she received a call from Xianchao around 2 p.m. Beijing time. For more than 10 hours afterward, she was immersed in a waking nightmare of helplessness and extreme anxiety. Her hands trembled to the point she couldn't hold the phone, only numbly waiting for news with ultimate fear. Then at 5 a.m. the next morning, the final news came, confirming their worst fears. Liu Qian's father was away on business at the time, leaving her mother with her 85-year-old grandmother embracing each other, sobbing in unshareable pain. After the tragic death of their beloved daughter, their world seemed covered in a dark fog. All colors, joy, and hope had vanished with their daughter's last breath. On January 5, 2012, at the bail hearing, the Ontario Superior Criminal Court made a decisive ruling, denying Dickson's request for bail. The reason given by the court was extremely convincing: the defendant's unstable lifestyle and many risk factors. Records showed that although he had studied at York University for 10 long years, Dickson had actually participated in real learning for less than 3 years. His work process was equally unstable, constantly changing and never staying long at any place. Particularly concerning were his medical records and previous allegations of abusive behavior, along with untreated depression and anxiety. The judge emphasized that with these factors, Dickson's probability of reoffending was assessed as extremely high, and releasing him into society would create an unacceptable threat to public safety. Moreover, with a serious charge like first-degree murder, even with a guarantor, they could not monitor the defendant 24 hours a day. With these irrefutable reasons, Dickson continued to be detained at the Ontario Provincial Detention Centre, awaiting formal trial. 3 years after the heartbreaking tragedy, March 24, 2014 marked an important moment when the case was finally brought to trial at the Ontario Superior Court. With pain still intact in their hearts, Liu Qian's parents traveled thousands of miles from Beijing to Canada to attend the trial, a painful but necessary journey to seek justice for their daughter. Xianchao, the only important witness who had witnessed Liu Qian's final moments through a video screen, also didn't hesitate to cross the geographical distance to testify, carrying the burden of horrific memories that still haunted him. In the tense atmosphere of the courtroom, Dickson's defense attorney strongly declared that his client completely denies guilt, and tried to convince the 14 jury members that this was not a premeditated murder. In response, the prosecution presented a massive amount of evidence: 5 large boxes filled with items collected from the scene, each object a silent witness to the crime that occurred in Liu Qian's small room. When the graphic images from the crime scene were projected on screen, Liu Qian's parents couldn't hold back tears, sobbing before the heartbreaking sight of their beloved child. In complete contrast, Dickson sat motionless, without any emotional expression on his face, a notable coldness in such circumstances. By April 4th, after many days of intense debate, the trial entered its final stage. Although both sides agreed that Dickson was responsible for Liu Qian's death, there remained a deep disagreement about the degree of crime. The prosecution firmly maintained that the defendant committed first-degree murder, the most serious charge with the highest punishment, while the defense tried to convince the jury this was only manslaughter, without strong enough evidence to prove premeditation in Dickson's actions. The prosecutor declared that Dickson forced his way into Liu Qian's room with bad intentions, and after encountering resistance, feared being reported so killed her to silence her. He assaulted Liu Qian exactly when Xianchao witnessed it. Afterward, her nightgown was pushed up above her chest, underwear, stockings, and sanitary pads scattered everywhere, with Dickson's bodily fluids on her body. Yet Dickson said he never hugged, kissed, or assaulted Liu Qian, a lie that could be said to be self-exposing. When interrogated by police, Dickson clearly understood his behavior that evening, so he reported a time significantly different from other witnesses. Later, he deliberately took away the victim's laptop and mobile phone, further showing intentional concealment of the truth. The defense attorney presented a hypothesis about the situation. During the assault, Liu Qian's head rested against the wall, causing muscle tension and contraction leading to asphyxiation and death. But Dickson didn't know this position would cause death. At the time of the incident, there were other tenants living in the house, some even moving about, so Dickson wouldn't risk killing someone. If he just wanted to sexually assault her and didn't want others to know, deciding to silence her would be very illogical. Between the two charges with different severities, he couldn't not know. Regarding the images Xianchao saw, the defense argued this was unfavorable testimony due to jealousy. The prosecution countered that if Xianchao witnessed a consensual scene, perhaps saying he was jealous might be understandable. But coincidentally, he witnessed a violent assault and murder, which provoked such a strong reaction. That's why Xianchao was desperate enough to seek outside help, even trying to record the event, including his own crying. Therefore, his testimony was authentic and reliable. The judge declared that the jury must confirm Dickson fully matched the following 4 elements to convict him of first-degree murder. 1. Dickson illegally caused Liu Qian's death. 2. He intended to kill. 3. He sexually assaulted or intended to sexually assault Liu Qian. 4. The sexual assault and killing of Liu Qian were part of the same sequence of events. On April 7, 2014, after 3 hours of discussion, the jury unanimously concluded that Dickson committed first-degree murder. The judge sentenced him to life imprisonment, with no possibility of parole for 25 years. Dickson immediately filed an appeal. However, his application for legal fee assistance from the government agency was denied, and his previous defense attorney no longer represented him. At that time in Canada, no lawyer was willing to defend him. Subsequently, he was forced to withdraw his appeal. The grieving Liu family cremated their daughter and brought her ashes back to Beijing. Regarding Dickson's trial outcome, they expressed that within the framework of respecting the Canadian legal system, they felt consoled and appreciated the effort the Canadian justice system dedicated to their daughter's case. After their daughter's death, her parents remembered her every minute of every day. The trauma Liu Qian's passing caused them cannot be expressed in words. At the same time, her parents also felt there would be no future anymore. But despite bone-deep pain, this kind-hearted couple still accepted apologies from Dickson's parents. In the victim impact statement, they said, "Our daughter is gone. We cannot live forever in hatred. We will live well. We accept the apology from Dickson's parents and also hope they live well." Though time has passed, Liu Qian's story remains as a profound warning for young people studying abroad far from home. Always stay vigilant, for dangers sometimes lurk in the places we least expect, and a moment of carelessness can lead to irreparable consequences. And that is today's case. What thoughts do you have about this case? Please share in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos.